All right, are we live? I think we are. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium to small businesses on the planet, maybe the universe. Maybe the universe. I'm back from a small holiday. It was a long weekend up here in Canada. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why at all. It's some sort of August. We just made it up. Civic holiday, I think we call it. And so we're back. This is the first working day on Tuesday here, and happy to be back with you. Happy to have a little time off. I do want to tell you that just as I was heading into my holiday, I was invited to and attended in Toronto. So I had to fly across the country from this because for you US people, I live just north of Montana, out in the middle of nowhere on a mountain. So I had to fly across the country to Toronto to attend a grand opening for a new restaurant. And the new restaurant I think is spectacular. It's going to be my new spot in Toronto. And I want to thank them by mentioning this to you. If you're in Toronto and you like Chinese, check out and great bars and great, just beautiful leaseholds, a spectacular place, Mott 32, MOTT 32. The number is 32. So Mott 32. They have locations around the world, Hong Kong, Dubai, Singapore, Vegas. They have one in Vancouver, in Canada, and now in Toronto. It's in the Shangri-La Hotel, and it's going to be my new hangout spot. So thank you to Mott 32 for this wonderful grand opening black tie affair. And I'll be back. And if you're in Toronto, go check it out. So if you watch this show, you will know that I like to start off usually with something light or fun or an interesting story. It gives people a chance to join the live stream and it warms us up a little bit, right, to stories. But this being July and August, the dog days of summer, there is no real news. And instead, it's replaced with just crazy news. And so, so I have to pick my favorite story from the last week while I was away. Now, what would that favorite story be? Would it be the Kamala Harris anointment as the nominee for the Democrat Party. I'm accused of making this show too political. It's not intended to be political at all, but if the news is all politics and we can learn some business lessons from it, I like to reference that, of course, to be current. And so, is it the Kamala Harris anointment after just throwing out Biden and ignoring entirely the 14 million votes that he got? Nobody seems to care about that. No, that's not the story. Is it Nancy Pelosi saying that Biden should be on Mount Rushmore? Mount Rushmore, after what is probably the most failed presidency in my lifetime. This guy makes Jimmy Carter look like a rock star. Nancy Pelosi thinks he should be on Mount Rushmore. By the way, little fun fact: did you know that Joe Biden is younger than Mount Rushmore by 1 year? True story. 1 year. It's not that story. What about all of the Olympic stories? Could it be all of the Olympic stories? Is that what I should start with? The Canadian women's soccer team. Did you see these women? It just, as a Canadian, made me so proud. Look, I know very little about soccer, and I know even less about women's soccer. And I know there was some sort of scandal or drama coming into the Olympics where the Canadians were docked 2 points in their preliminary rounds or whatever. And they had to sweep their preliminary rounds to go to the next level, which they did. But the amazing thing to me was did you see the size of these women? These Canadian women are so big and so strong. I thought they looked like a rugby team out there. And I watched them playing Colombia, and these poor little Colombian girls are just getting bodied out by the Canadian women. It was an impressive display. I know they lost in I think the quarterfinals or semifinals, or they lost anyways, they graduated from their division and lost to Germany in a shootout, which sucks, but that was a great story. But no, that's not what I want to talk about. Do I want to talk about the Olympics that men are winning medals for beating the crap out of women? No, I don't want to talk about that either. By the way, I don't think that story is true at all. It's all over the internet and the newspapers, but I think that they have the facts of that wrong. Do I want about what I was going to talk about? My opening story for all of us was going to be the Turkish hitman from the Olympics. I mean, that was amazing. Did you see this guy winning the silver medal in the shooting competition? So all the competitors from the other countries were in these like crazy bodysuits. They have big headphones on that silence out all external noises, so they're not distracted. It protects their ears, of course, from the gun noise, but they're also not distracted. They have these fancy glasses on that block one eye. I guess it'd be this eye for when you're shooting, and they have but they also have a digital screen in there which tells them something. I don't know. They look like they just walked out of a video game or some futuristic movie. And then you got this dude from Turkey shows up in his jeans, excuse me, and a white T-shirt that says Turkey on it, like it was some sort of souvenir, some sort of souvenir T-shirt. And he walks up, and he has his ear protections, are those things that your wife might sleep with to block out the noise at night. And he just has his regular prescription glasses on, and that's it. And he shoots with both eyes open and has his left hand in his pocket of his jeans, just like chilling, hanging out, and wins the silver medal. And it's all over the internet that Turkey sent a hitman to the Olympics. Well, that was going to be the story, but no. My favorite story that I want to open with, to just be fun and interesting and warm us up for the day, is quite clearly it has to be the RFK Jr. bear story. Did you see this? Now, I'm not going to do this justice. You need to Google it, but RFK Jr. bear story, you'll get, and you need to listen to his version of the story, and it just goes on and on and on, but it's classic. I guess I can get rid of this banner now, right? That says we're starting at 8:30 Mountain, since we've already started. So here's the deal. RFK, first of all, he's in Roseanne's kitchen, Roseanne Barr. Now, why is he in Roseanne Barr's kitchen? I have no idea. That's an interesting part of the story right there. And he's telling this story to Roseanne, and he says, so like 10 years ago, I'm driving up in northern state New York, and they're going falconing or hawking or something to do with prey birds, like, which we all do. I mean, that makes us very relatable, right? It's so relatable to me. I don't even know what the damn word is. Falconing, is that right? Maybe someone in the comments can let me know the answer to that. He says he's going up, and the woman in front of him hits a bear. So there's a bear running across the road. She hits the bear, kills the bear. And so there's roadkill, and he says, this looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm going to keep this dead bear. And he puts the bear in his car because he's going to go skin the bear and save the meat and put it in his fridge because it's legal in New York State. You can get a roadkill tag. Who the hell knew? You can get a roadkill tag and put the thing and keep the meat. So he got the bear. They go up hawking, as he says, and he says, it's such a great day. Everybody's having so much fun, so longer than I thought. And then I'm driving back, and I'm thinking, well, I don't have time to go home. I got to get to Brooklyn to what's the big steakhouse there? The Peter Log something. Anyways, you guys know the steakhouse in Brooklyn. He's got a dinner, so he drives straight there with the bear in his car. He drives straight there, has a wonderful dinner, meets all his whoever he's having for dinner. They have some drinks, not him because he doesn't drink, and and dinner goes longer than he thinks. And then he says, oh, well, I guess I just need to get to the airport. I have a flight to catch. I don't have time to go home, but I don't want to take this bear to the airport, leave this dead bear in my car while I'm off on my trip. And also, I have a bicycle in my car that somebody gave me to get rid of. No word on what kind of car this was and whether he had room for anything else, but he does have a dead bear and a bicycle, according to this story. And so what they decide to do is stage a bicycle kills bear scene in Central Park. And that's what, just for the kicks. And so that's what they do. So they got to Central Park, drop off the dead bear and the bike, sort of stage a crash scene. And then he goes to the airport. And of course, this is your presidential candidate, by the way, RFK Jr. And the next day, he looks at the news, and it's all over the news. There's yellow tape around this crash scene. They're investigating. They're going to send a bike off to Albany for fingerprinting. No word as to why you need to take a bike out of Manhattan. You can't do fingerprints in Manhattan. There's something fishy about this story. As Gutfeld said, he on Fox, he says he loves these stories from RFK Jr. because they're just like, he's just telling you what he dreamed last night. And so he's worried that there's fingerprints all over this bicycle that somebody gave him to throw out. And so he stressed about this, but he kept it quiet. And 10 years later, here we are. The New York Post is going to do a hit story on him, and they got wind of this, and they're fact checking. And so he's telling Roseanne Barr and recording it to get ahead of the story. Word yesterday is Alvin Bragg, DA in Manhattan, is going to charge and indict RFK Jr. with something over this story, of course, because it's entirely political. So that was my favorite story. That was my favorite story from the last week. Well, welcome, everybody, to the Kamala crash. Wall Street Journal yesterday. That was a Trump phrasing for the market crash yesterday, by the way. He says, hey, do you want Kamala crash or Trump cash? Yeah. Wall Street Journal yesterday, financial markets are supposed to capture the wisdom of the crowd, but on Monday, the crowd ran in all directions, waving its hands in the air, screaming, panic hit the markets. Global sell-off everywhere, triggered by a sudden switch in the economic narrative that we're going to have a soft landing, which is all what we thought. Remember, on this show, I've been telling you we're in a recession. I don't care what the stats say. The economic data in an election cycle, it's never true. They keep changing the definition of a recession. As a business owner, as a leader, assume that we are in a recession, because we are. And then we have this narrative of, are we in a soft landing, or are we going to move to a hard landing? And adding to the mix of this change in narrative, according to the Wall Street Journal, that we're going to have a hard crash. In other words, a more significant recession, not just a little slowdown. There's a bursting of the bubble of the artificial intelligence. The All In podcast last week dealt with this at length. It's an interesting podcast if you don't listen to it, but the artificial intelligence bubble is definitely bursting. So that's part of this. And of course, it's the AI bubble that has been fueling a bunch of stock market gains in 2024. There's a Japanese Bank of Japan was strengthening the Japanese yen, which is going against a bunch of trades that hedge funds have open, and so they're exiting those positions, created some of the crash yesterday. Warren Buffett sold off half his Apple shares and moved to cash to be ready to buy stock after whatever crash is coming. And so all these things were leading to this, but also not in the Wall Street Journal, but in some of the online business shows afterwards. There was a real discussion about the markets just waking up in general to the fact that Kamala Harris has a good chance of being our next president in the United States, and therefore we are all economically screwed. So that's part of the issue. Sorry, I just want to shut this program down because I've got family members calling me during my live stream. And so anyways, big crash on Monday, panic everywhere. But in the end, it was much ado about nothing. The S&P fell about 3%, 160 points. It's intraday, it was a pretty big crash. I think I read 1,000 points somewhere or something crazy, but not in the S&P, but probably on the NASDAQ. But anyways, it was down 3% in total. No real big deal, a little correction. And so far, when I was logging in, I'm not sure where we are, but an hour ago, things look fine. The futures look fine. Things were going up. And so the markets are, still positive for all of 2024. And just a reminder that this is July and August, and you get sell-offs. You get people going on holidays, and you get people moving to cash. They don't want to look at their positions. The volumes are thin compared to normal, and therefore a few sales really drive down the markets. And so this does not mean, in my view, that the bubble is bursting at all. But it also does not mean that the bubble will not be bursting. You've got so much liquidity that's been pushed into the market during the Biden-Harris administration. 100% there's a bubble. 100% there's going to be a crash. But I don't think that's what's happened right now. I think this is a minor correction. We should all just chill out, and we should not let ourselves be distracted or depressed by the markets. I've been telling you on this show for a while that we're in a recession. And it doesn't matter what the numbers tell you. And the answer to being in a recession is to keep your head down, hunker down, control your costs as a medium, small business, and focus on your priorities, and only your priorities. Treat this as a crisis. And we talked about this a lot on the Winning Momentum podcast. We talked about how to manage during a crisis. And the answer is to revisit your core values. What are your priorities? And to focus on those, cut everything else out, and to be aggressive and leapfrog your competition during this turbulent time. That's how to manage in a crisis. And it all involves focusing on your priorities. And that's what we should be doing right now, because things are going to change. Things change in a recession, in times of volatility, in times of crisis. Think about the ultimate in our lifetime, the ultimate crisis, economic crisis, being COVID. Think about the things that you used to do and the companies that used to dominate whatever it is that you're thinking about before you went into COVID, and then think about the ones after COVID. They've changed. Some are the same. Some came through and held their market position, but there's all sorts of new participants in every walk of your life, in everything you do economically, because of the volatility in economics in general. Be the winner, not the loser. All right, those were the markets. So every day I am bombarded by marketing experts. Do you feel the same thing? Cold calls, emails, LinkedIn posts. Other experts, marketing experts and other experts that are going to change my business. They're going to change my life. Interesting or fun post by Rob Fraser of Outway Socks. Rob is a friend of the show. He's in Victoria, British Columbia. Look Rob up on LinkedIn. Just Rob Fraser, Outway Socks. He's a fantastic entrepreneur, and he is knocking it out of the park and he gives a bunch of wisdom in his social media posts about his journey of learning how to be a business person. He started his business coming out of being a pro athlete in mountain biking, downhill mountain biking specifically. That's where I met him. We were both competing, and he was a pro. I was in the old man's class, obviously, and so he comes out of a sport being a professional athlete, starts a business knowing nothing about business, and he posts a lot about his entrepreneurial journey. And he's a very bright, full of wisdom, thoughtful guy. And so it's worth you looking up his LinkedIn posts about that. Also, you should buy socks. His socks are terrific. I love them. So Rob says, a year ago, I made an expert hire that ended up costing me $400,000. The worst part is I knew better, but I was reaching out for a silver bullet. So the story is he hired an expert to lead Outway's growth marketing, and he spent a considerable amount of time and resources hiring. They had all the answers to all our questions. We're confident the person he was hiring could scale us to the moon. I'm not sure if it was a person or a agent. Sorry, my allergies are killing me here. So after 3 months, they were gone, and it cost the business over $400,000. Now, I have no idea how he managed to spend $400,000 on an employee or marketing agency over 3 months. That seems excessive. Maybe that includes the ad buys that were a failure. I don't know. He says, I knew better, but I had to relearn the lesson. The lesson being that silver bullets don't exist. He says the curse of an entrepreneur is they want it all now. The success of an entrepreneur is that they remain patient. The biggest mistakes I've made in business have been the result of impatience. We've never had success by chasing opportunities that seemed too good to be true. Over the years, our biggest wins have been the compound results of small improvements across our entire business over years. And here's the heart of this. You know, when the markets crash, we want to panic. And I'm urging you not to panic, because I think it's a small correction. And what you need to do is focus on your priorities and just keep moving forward. Rob's example of hiring an expert that failed, I think as entrepreneurs, if you are an entrepreneur, we've all experienced this. We think, we're struggling with this item or that item, or we've got the greed kicks in. We want to have a bigger success. We want to grow to the moon. And so we've heard this pitch from somebody. We're going to hire that somebody or that agency to go grab the mantle, right? And that's what we're doing. Instead of focusing on small incremental growth and being patient. You're lessening your risk, and you should always look for small incremental growth. That's basically what he is saying in this message. And my experience, I've done this 1,000 times over as well. You never win on those big silver bullet gains, as he tries to say. You always win by the small improvements compounding year over year. I will make one amendment to Rob's advice, if I may. That's when you're growing your business. You never want to sort of roll the dice, bet the farm, so to speak, on something new to create incremental, like multiples of growth immediately, and to be impatient. You want to grow slowly and compound over time. But on the downside, if you're losing, you want to change quickly. The number one rule of fixing a troubled business is to change. You can't do the same thing over and over again and expect to have different or better results, right? So on the downside, we always say stop the bleeding immediately. That's rapid change, hardcore change, and put a stop to the downward slide so that you gain positive momentum. But the positive momentum needs to be slow, incremental, and it needs to compound. Think of it that way when you're running your business, and you will be much better off, and you'll save yourself $400,000 over 3 years. And check out Rob's LinkedIn post. He does a great job. So yesterday, a judge ruled that Google, on the search engine side, has been illegally exploiting its dominance to squash competition and stifle innovation in a seismic decision. Wow, this is really wordy from the Globe and Mail. Could shake up the internet and hobble one of the world's best known companies. Quote, after having carefully considered and weighed the witness testimony and evidence, the court reaches the following conclusion. Google is a monopolist, and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly in a 277-page ruling that comes out of Texas, I believe. By the way, ironically, this is a judgment coming out of a Trump administration antitrust suit. So it was basically Trump suing Google, and he won. He said Google's dominance in the search market is evidence of its monopoly. Google enjoys an 89.2% share of the market for general search services, which increases to 94.9% on mobile devices. The ruling says, here's my question for you and my point. Do you still Google? Does anybody still Google? Like, there's way other more useful search engines that are not weighted in certain directions that Google wants to weight them in. Search is exploding on X, formerly Twitter. There was a news report yesterday that it's exploding on TikTok. For the younger generation, TikTok is the #1 search engine. I don't know what the hell information you would get off TikTok, but that's what they're searching on. YouTube is an important search engine, but I think more and more, like, I don't use Google hardly ever anymore. I do all my searching on artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, instead of Googling, hey, I want to hear about the markets yesterday, or Googling about market stories yesterday from the Wall Street Journal or what have you. I'm going to ask ChatGPT, what happened to the markets yesterday? I can have a conversation with it. It is going out to look at the information. It's putting it into a summary for me. I can have a little argument with it, and I can get a lot more information that is relevant a lot more quickly. Now, ChatGPT lies. You need to be careful about that. It lies to you, so you need to ask for sources. You need to double check what it's telling you, but so does Google. You can't just go to the first 2 or 3 search items on the front page of whatever you've searched on Google and expect that that's going to be accurate information. It entirely depends on what Google wants you to see. And that's just been displayed over and over and over again. So here's the irony, is I think that Google's already losing on the search, and that it's going to be entirely replaced by AI. Now, it might be Google AI, right? So, but the entire function of searching, to me, is at the beginning of the end. I don't use Google search anymore. And if you're running a business, if you're doing anything, you should really look at AI as a source for that. By the way, I think it was yesterday, my 83-year-old mother in the US told me that she was searching for something on healthcare, and she was using ChatGPT. She wasn't Googling anything. She was asking the artificial intelligence for the information she wanted. Google search is over, in my opinion. This story is closing the barn door after the horse has already left. Did I get that right? I think I got that right. Hey, we're at our 30 minutes. It's good to be back. Thank you for joining me. Those are all my prepared remarks. No comments that I need to respond to. Thank you all for listening. We will see you tomorrow, 8:30 Mountain.